This week on our free segment here on YouTube, join us as we discuss the tariff timeout. What does that 90 days really mean? But for now, sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lyndsay.
How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. I am technically on vacation right now.
Right now.
So we are pre-recording a little bit early.
Yes.
I always like to shout that out in case something major happens.
I know,
between now and then.
Well, it's dangerous these days. Economics used to be more boring. Like, I got into this field as a boring field. It shouldn't be this exciting. I hate that, but
I know, it is very exciting. I had a conversation with a client the other day that was like, bad day to be an economist. And I was like, you're telling me.
There's no bad day to be an economist.
Oh, that's kind. No, it is. It's fun right now because we have a lot to talk about. And this first segment here that we're going to be talking about today really kind of trails off of last week's episode where we were talking about, we had just received the news that President Trump had put a 90-day postponement on the tariffs with China.
Another 90 days.
Another 90
But
day.
yes, with regard to China specifically, the tariff dropped from 145% to 30%. That's a big difference.
It is a big difference. And we're going from our episode last week talking about basically these deserted ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach and pivoting over to this next article that's making headlines this week. And it is first relief, then a scramble to get stuff in after U.S. cuts China tariffs for now.
For now.
Big emphasis on the for now.
Right. But what whiplash when we were just saying there were zero ships from China inbound to Long Beach and LA, and now you can't get a spot on a ship fast enough to get all of these products in.
Right, exactly. So just to kind of level set everything that we're talking about here within this article, the U.S. and China have agreed to a 90-day reduction in tariffs, which was probably better phrased than when I said postponement because it's not that they've gone completely away.
Right.
It's a 90-day reduction in tariffs.
Exactly.
With U.S. duties on Chinese goods decreasing from 145% to 30%, like you said, huge difference there. And Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods dropping from 125% to 10%.
Yeah.
And this move aims to ease trade tensions and provide short-term relief to businesses. So, big question here. What does a 90-day tariff reduction mean in practical economic terms? Like, what are we looking at here? What is this? What difference is this going to make?
It's a big difference. If you were waiting, not bringing in imports, whether finished goods, whether inputs into whatever you're manufacturing here, 145% is very, very different than 30%.
Yeah.
30%, it kind of maintains, honestly, I think of it as that sweet spot, so to speak, where Chinese goods can still compete with U.S. products, but it neutralizes a little bit of that obvious cost advantage that you get from coming out of China. So, there's more to this 90-day period. China stopped some measures like reducing critical mineral exports. They had been, kind of pulling other levers. It's not just on pricing. So more happening here. But what this does is it brings back a little more business as usual. Yes, it's not zero tariffs. Tariffs are higher than they were pre-President Trump. But it's a little bit more manageable. It's a little bit more, like I said, business as usual. And we're seeing folks start to respond to that. So anytime you skew incentives, we're going to start to see, all right, I need to call up my factory in China, get that material to the port, get it on a ship. That's this current scramble.
Yeah, and I guess I'll ask the question that everybody out there wants to know. What does this mean for me as a business owner? What does this mean for me as a consumer?
So at the moment, this is not, yes, it's a big change. Yes, there is the whiplash, but it's not going to mean that either something isn't available on the shelf or suddenly it is. A lot of these supply chains, they're longer. And so like we had said last week, I think this is the perfect example to everything we said with, yes, there's a hole, but we had front-loaded so many imports, right? We brought so much in that'll carry us through while we wait out these longer, higher tariffs. now, yes, things are back down to normal. So maybe there will be some catch up. But if you take a step back, if you average out all of these little headline trends, these little spurts of activity and inactivity, we're actually back to something a little bit more normal.
You know, a lot of folks are out there and a lot of these headlines are out there pointing fingers. But the reality of the fact is we really only have data, like hard data, really through March. We've just recently gotten some April data with regards to inflation. And I think that this next article is attempting to kind of draw some imagery around that topic exactly. So the next headline is Trump tariffs have little impact on prices so far, defying grim forecasts. So recent data shows that despite the implementation of new tariffs, inflation has risen at a slower pace than many economists had anticipated. In April, the Consumer Price Index reported a 2.3% annual increase, which is the smallest since early 2021. Surprisingly, prices for items like clothing and new cars have declined, even as tariffs were expected to drive them up. So help us understand this inflation puzzle.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting number here in April.
2.3. Yep. So that's what we would call the 112 rate of change, April compared to last April. That still is in phase C. So consumer price inflation still in that disinflationary environment, which, to put this in context of our forecast, we've been saying there's a little bit more disinflation to come. We think by mid-year, that's when we kind of turn that inflection point. We start to see inflation picking back up, that rate going higher again. I don't think we're there quite yet. We've got a little bit longer.
Okay.
It's creeping in though. So overall, my read on CPI, and I did an interview on NPR the day this data came out, but just before it was announced, so before that that data was released. And I said at the time, I do not expect the full tariff impact to come through in the April numbers. It's too soon, right? Too many things just have to happen. That mechanism to work through the economy, it takes longer. So,
well, what did he call it? Liberation Day? That was
Liberation
April
Day. That
2nd.
was April 2nd.
So that was the first hard and fast number or percentage that we had in a lot of scenarios. And we all know what's happened since then.
It doesn't seem like it's only been since April 2nd, right?
Let's hope that right now, as people are watching this, I am not on one of the roller coasters that represent this up and down that we've been experiencing and information, not data necessarily, but information over the last couple of months.
Exactly. And so, and that's part of it too, right? We get a tariff, we get a pullback, we get a rollback, we get a pause, 90 days or whatever else.
Lots of whiplash.
So April is where we would have expected to see maybe a little bit more pass through. I wouldn't have been surprised, but definitely not the full impact because of all of that front loading. Inventory still on the books at lower prices. It will take longer. Now, I do also want to point out that the CPI ex food and energy, that core CPI number, that came in at 2.8%. A little bit higher. In both cases, we're still above the Fed's looking for 2% as their target rate.
Good point.
They don't look at CPI, they look at PCE, but without splitting hairs, I mean, we're still higher if we're just looking for that kind of ballpark number. And CPI is the first read we get for April. So interesting data point here. Again, still a little bit elevated, but still moving in the right direction. That's good news.
Okay, I think that's a really, really good advice. Well, certainly a complex interplay between tariffs, inflation, monetary policy. It's quite the game that we're playing right now here.
Keeping economics exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's all the time we have for today here on our free segment on YouTube. If you'd like to learn more about full-length episodes, click on the link in the description below. There you can learn about becoming an Insider Plus member. You'll have access to this full-length episode, all the ones past, and all those yet to come. But until next time, bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lyndsay.